So I wanted to talk to you about how to use the Murli to actually meditate, because the Murli is the foundation of the meditation. And a lot of people don't really quite understand this. So I wanted to take some examples from the Murli of today and see if it becomes clear for you what exactly this method of meditation is. Because meditation doesn't mean think whatever you want and meditate on whatever seems like a good idea at the time, because that will make you a little bit happy for a short period of time, but it won't really do what we want it to do. In that case, it's counterproductive. So I'm just looking through to see a point that may be useful for you. And I'm going to take this sentence. It says, "You are studying to claim your fortune of the kingdom for 21 births. That is, you have come here to make your fortune of the kingdom." So we're going to take this sentence as the foundation of the meditation. Obviously, you can take any sentence, but this one I think may be intriguing because, first of all, you have to ask yourself, is that what you're actually doing? It says you are studying to claim your fortune of the kingdom. And the whole theme of the Murli is about fortune being awakened. And it's really something to think about. So you are the soul who God is talking to. And he says, you are here to make your fortune. And so ask yourself, is that really what's going on for you? Are you here to make your fortune? Do you think you are here to make your fortune? He says you are here to make your fortune. That means it is something to think about. So meditation means to think deeply about what is worth thinking about. And the question of making your fortune is intriguing. The song that he talked about is, it's, "I have come because my fortune was awakened." And so you have to think about this idea of fortune and the idea of fortune getting awakened, and ask yourself, okay, here's something to think about. I'm a soul who was out of luck, out of fortune. And here he is saying, okay, your fortune turned around. Your fortune woke up. That means to say any kind of misfortune that may have been going on was ended by this circumstance that you came to God. Somehow or the other, you came to God and it changed everything. What exactly did it change? How did it change it? Did it really change it? So you're asking yourself these questions. All this is meditation, to think deeply about something that he says. And so again and again, go to the beginning of the exploration that, okay, my fortune was awakened. And how is fortune awakened? And what is the meaning of fortune being awakened? And you have to look at the opposite, fortune on one side, misfortune on the other side. So if you look at your life from the position that you're sitting in at the moment, just look at your life and look at the direction it was going. And maybe it was going in the direction of the rest of the world, which means Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga is basically sending everyone into problems because the karma that everyone does in terms of their thinking, their speaking, the way of relating, the choices they make, put them into loss. So to what extent was this going on in your life? There must have been something going on that was causing you to invoke this encounter with God. And so here you are, you came. And whenever you came, it could have been many years ago, it could have been a few years ago, or just recently, but whatever it was, you came and you began to study spiritual knowledge. So think about that. Okay, this is me, I'm the soul, and I came, or I arrived, or did Baba call me? Did Baba find me, or did I find Baba? Generally, we feel that it's not very easy to find God. So it's much easier if God found me, because how do you find God? It's very difficult. So God found me, and here I am. And once you find God, you find the source that gives you back what you had lost. And so fortune means wealth. Spiritual wealth means spiritual energy, spiritual wisdom, and the different qualities, the purity, the peace, the power, the love, the bliss that the soul is made of, that God is the ocean of. And more than anything, I think what many of us wanted was clarity. We want to know what's what. We were looking for truth. I think most people are very keen to find truth. And it is said God is truth. And the opposite of truth is untruth. Was I going along on the basis of a few things that were untrue, thinking that they were true? And first and foremost, I think one's sense of self. So you go again and again back to this song that is the foundation of this Murli. I have come because my fortune woke up. My luck changed. And I started to get what I need in terms of information and in terms of qualities and in terms of know-how, how to connect with God. So here I am sitting here meditating, thinking about my fortune. And then he says, study. Fortune and study are connected. So see those two words, fortune and study. My fortune is awakened and I started to study truth. So think about that for a minute. We're looking for truth, but then we found God, we found truth. And what is truth? Many things are there, but the first truth is, I am okay. That's a very important statement to make to oneself. And God found me, which means I'm important. And sometimes you think, I don't matter, I'm not important. What difference does it make if I'm here or I'm not here? But God found me and said, okay, I would like you to be my child and be my student. So that's my fortune. And he says, okay, now study. Study means understand yourself. Understand who you are. What you thought you were is not what you actually are. What are you studying? You're studying about the knowledge of the soul and its passage through time. So my fortune is to know who I am. How does this study show me who I am? What has it shown me about me? Well, one thing it shows is that this is as bad as it gets, because we have been declining for 84 births. And we thought, many of us thought, we were evolving, because that's what we were told. We thought this is we've evolved and this is the best. And then he says, no, it's not actually the best, it's the worst. So from here on, you're going up, but up until now, you've been going down. And that was called, your fortune wasn't doing too well, but now the direction of your life has changed. So think about that. God came into your life. I said, okay, you're my child. We said, okay, that's all right. I can do that. Now study. Okay, this is interesting. I'll study. And what am I studying here? I'm studying myself. So we have this word, realize the self. And we use the word realize in lots of different ways, but study the self is a different way. I'm studying about myself. I'm studying about myself as a soul who is being told who I am. And there's a big difference between me studying about myself under the instruction of God and what I have been told about myself by people. And who tells you who you are in life, your parents. They give you your identity. The people around you reflect you back, and they tell you who you are in terms of how you look. They talk to you a lot about your body, if you're beautiful or not, if they like you or not. And so you get all these messages from people which compare you to other people physically. They may tell you about your intelligence level, your potential, you're attractive, not attractive. And then God is saying something different. He says, no, none of that has any relevance whatsoever. It's just physical stuff, but you're not physical. You're something else. You're a being. And when you thought you were an object, it made you act in that consciousness. It made you act as if you are a body. But now it's different. So think about your fortune. What is your fortune? Your fortune is you're loved by God. You're selected by God. And you say, okay, why? Why am I selected by God? What's so great about me? And then you start looking at yourself and say, well, why would God select me? And he says, well, why not? And there is a saying, many are called and few are chosen, but they're not chosen by God, they're chosen by themselves. So he calls us, he says, okay, now you come, I can make your fortune. The word for God in Hindi is Bhagwan, and Bhagwan means the fortune maker. And so he's talking to us as the fortune maker. And so you think, okay, my fortune is awakened by the fortune maker himself. And he says, okay, all you have to do is make yourself free from depending on the messages that people give you. Make yourself free from thinking that that's true. Make yourself free from believing things about yourself that are physical and taking it as if it's really about you. So it means we have to change our perspective on ourselves. So meditating about your perspective on yourself. So you look at yourself in the light of this, that the fortune maker is teaching us to see ourselves differently. And to see ourselves as having incredibly great potential. So you're pondering. Meditation is also pondering on myself. I have great potential. I have many births. I have done many things over a long, long period of time. I'm interesting. They could be good things, bad things, whatever, but I'm an actor. And now God, who is the ocean of wisdom, is inviting me to study with himself. And he says, I'm your father, your teacher, and your guru, as well as your friend, your mother, your protector. I will take care of you and I will guide you. And so there we are, sitting, thinking about this fortune that all of a sudden happened. And, well, this is Thanksgiving time, so I'm actually quite grateful, quite thankful that, wow, I am studying such material that's enabling me at every step, with every thought, with every word, with every action, to create fortune that is very high fortune and that'll last for a long, long time, and that cancels out any kind of misfortune that's come my way. And so that's pretty good. And you see, thinking like this, what does it do? It takes you to the one who's talking to you. Because God is intangible. But what he says is tangible. You can grasp it. It's words. It's ink on paper. It's right there in front of you. He says to me, you can say to yourself, he says to me, you've come and it woke up your fortune. And so consider that you are actually lucky, very lucky. Usually people think of luck as being, okay, you won the jackpot on the lottery. And sometimes he says, okay, this is a lottery and you did win the jackpot. So you say to yourself, really? Fortune means I won the lottery, I'm lucky, I won the jackpot. And what is this jackpot? Well, he says, study this, and this will teach you how to do such karma that you become the wealthiest person in the world, who has also got the great fortune of perfect health. He says in the Murli today, your body will not get damaged by anything. The type of body you have in the golden age is completely healthy. No pain, no emotional pain, no physical pain, no financial pain. Even the poorest people in the Golden Age are very wealthy. You'll never have to work. Things come easy. And you are respected, loved, recognized for who you are. And you will not die. And the deities are called the immortals. So, you may be concerned about death because people are concerned about death. It's all around us. This is the world of death. But fortune means that you really know and feel and experience that you're immortal. You leave one body, take another. You are comfortable with that, or getting more and more comfortable with it. And as you raise these thoughts into your mind, allow yourself to just feel them. Fortune, what does it mean? And I have fortune. I am given fortune. I'm increasing my fortune. They say it takes money to make money. So it takes fortune to make fortune. And we are studying, not only recognizing that we have fortune, but studying how to increase it and make it the best. The fortune of wealth, health, and also good relationships. Everybody has some kind of relationship issue, I would imagine. But what he's teaching us, how he's opening our fortune, is good relations. So sit with yourself for a moment and feel what it's like to live with people who see you as you are, who love you, who recognize you, appreciate you, and that you have all the love and energy in the world to respond to them in kind and live in the happiness of good relations, good health, wealth, beauty all around. And everyone has meaning in their life. And having connected with God, you also got a lot of meaning in your life at this time. Even if you don't have all sorts of physical wealth and health and good relations, but what you do have is you are dwelling in the heart of God. You are being guided at every step. He's giving you also the fortune of spiritual powers, spiritual wisdom, so that no matter what the situation, you actually have access to a huge compendium of knowledge that will let you know, when you think about it, you know exactly what to do, how to do, good choices to make, so that even troubled circumstances can get resolved quite well, because you have access to the ways to sort things out. And anytime if you feel in your mind, you get that feeling that you doubt yourself, or it affects you when somebody doesn't treat you well or doesn't understand you as you hope to be understood, but you understand yourself and God understands you, and that's enough. If another person can't see you, well, It's not surprising, really. They don't have the third eye, so how could they? And it's about being all right with that. But this is how you meditate with the Murli. And when you have, initiated this process of selecting a sentence from the Murli and going into the depth of it, you can see what I'm doing is gathering all the thoughts that are connected with your fortune being awakened, and study with God, the fortune maker. And so what this does is it brings you, if you remember the picture that I showed you of the 4 stages of yoga. So up until now, I've been showing you the first and second stages. And the third stage is when you're on a roll, and the thoughts just come by themselves. And this is going to be different for each one. And I will not guide you in that, because what I think is useful for you is to just have a bit of an idea of how to get it going, because each person will get carried into the third stage of concentration with your own process of thinking. And when you're telling somebody else how to do it, that's one thing. But when you're doing it for your own self, it's really personal. And it's just between you, yourself, and God. And so this takes you to God, and the connection with God is like you have arrived at a destination, which is a journey of the mind, a journey of thought. And you're exploring these points that we selected arbitrarily. There are so many points in the Murli, but just to sit with the self and really learn to use the Murli. And just put, here we put 2 points together, the fortune, having awakened, and study. And what those 2 things do. You can also put 3 or 4 together, or you could just take 1. It's entirely up to you. But the first step is to decide, okay, what am I going to explore? And he often says that meditation is a journey. It's a journey of the mind. And you've already thought about, I'm a soul leaving the body, traveling to the soul world, going around the cycle, come back into the golden age, or sending love and peace to everybody, and so on. So that's okay, but you've done it already. And meditation needs to be fresh and new. And this is why you often hear Gyan, then yoga, then dharana, then service. So Gyan is in the Murli. And by churning the Murli, studying the Murli, going into the depth of it, asking yourself, okay, what is this? And what do I think about this? And also discussing it with Baba. This is also meditation. So meditation doesn't mean trying to make yourself just become quiet, because that's like more physical. But when you churn the Murli, when you take up some points from the Murli and explore them, it takes you somewhere. That's why it's called a journey of remembrance. And of course, the destination, where will it take you? All of these churnings take you to the origin of the knowledge, which is God. And to arrive at God means to arrive at his mind. And the Murli is what comes out of his mind. And so you want to go in deep. And as I mentioned from time to time, the Murli is encoded because it's not accessible to anyone who's not really his child and not really his student. So if anybody else picks up the Murli, they'll say, oh, it's not very interesting. But for us, we go into it and we find what's deep in the depths of the ocean. And we arrive at the point, which is God. And when you arrive at Baba through some of the things that he says, you're arriving at the origin of what he says, which is himself. And you arrive at him through him, not through yourself. Because if you arrive at God through yourself, that means according to what you know about God, which may or may not be correct. But if you arrive at God through him, you're arriving at God through what he says, and you're following that train of thoughts that actually takes you to the origin of what is said. And that's why it's so interesting. Because, people don't really know God. A lot of things are said about God in the path of devotion, in different prayers, and so on and so forth. And we learn all sorts of things about God in the 7 days course, but that's okay, we did that already. Now you want to go further in and deeper. And you see, sometimes people say, oh, I can't meditate. And that means that they're not actually using the method of meditation, because there's nothing to stop you selecting a point from the Murli. But if you do select a point from the Murli or a couple of points or whatever, and you can't get it going, what it means is you have to do the work. And that's work of the intellect, this brain work, because you have to collect the points that are related. And what happens when you say you can't meditate is that you don't get inspired, you don't get excited by the points that you chose. That means don't choose those points. Keep going, go further in, and look at the Murli or read it a few times until you encounter the point that kind of lights up for you and says, you need to think about me, because I'm a point that you haven't thought about before. And you need to think about me today. And this is why I'm lighting up. And you can even, notice this happen. So I think that when we say we can't meditate, a lot of the time it's because we don't really want to do the work, or maybe we don't even know that there's work involved. We hear that this is easy Raj Yoga, but it's not that easy. And getting your mind and intellect to do this kind of work is a kind of exercise that exercises the muscle of the intellect. And so this second step of meditation is difficult because you have to concentrate, you have to focus, you have to think, what is he saying? And grasp it and go in there. And when you put two things together that wouldn't normally come together, that's very helpful, because these are like strands or streets that take you to the destination. And the destination is to commune with God as he is, who he is. And he says so often, you don't know me as I am and what I am. So you say to him, okay, who are you? And he says, well, the Murli is my expression of myself to you. Now you use that to reach me. Otherwise, what's the point of having a Murli? It has to having a point. There has to be a purpose. So let me take up this question that has come from Ron in Edmonton, and that is the difference between fortune and blessings, which I think is a very interesting question. So fortune is bhagya, and blessings is vardhan. So fortune, it's a very interesting thing to just meditate on, actually, the difference between fortune and blessings, because you have fortune and you also have blessings. And one of the things Baba said about blessings is, use them or you lose them, kind of thing. So the blessings, I think one aspect of the blessings is the titles that he gives us. He says you are Swaдаrshan Chakradhari, or he says you are Trinetri, or you are Maharati, or you are special, you are my brides, you are, and these are very beautiful statements that it's important to take on and take in and say yes to and consider these are true. And there may be some resistance because sometimes there are people who say, oh, I'm not that great. God must have made a mistake. Things like that. But so we have to get past that and say to ourselves, no, he's speaking to me directly. Or sometimes you may say, no, he's talking to somebody else, but no, he's speaking to me directly. And so let me take this on and take this in. Now, fortune, especially in terms of today's Murli, fortune is, okay, you have the encounter with God, you have met God, he has made you his own, he has made you his student, he has made you his follower. So that's really good fortune. So from that angle, you could say, okay, fortune comes first, and then with fortune, the blessings start flowing. And so in that sense, the fortune and the blessings go together. But, you think about these things in your way, and you can arrive at clarity. And it doesn't mean that if you think your way that it's not the best way, or there could be another way that's better. No, your way is valid, and it's important for you to affirm to yourself that your way of thinking about it, that's you making your relationship with Baba, and it's in many ways nothing to do with anybody else. It's just me and Baba, and we have something going on together, and that's what it is.
So is it best to listen to the Murli without writing down the points of the Murli? How do we turn about remembering Baba and becoming pure and free from vikars?
Well, you have to really understand yourself. Some people, they like to take notes. Some people, they don't. And you can't really say which is better because everybody has their own style. And I think what's really important is to validate for yourself what your way is. Because, in terms of education, there are many learning styles. And during the time of Brahma Baba, they didn't know that there were many learning styles, and they were used to just one learning style, which is that you listen to something and you learn it by heart and then you give it back. But that's not necessarily the best way, and certainly not the only way. So you have to see yourself. What do you like to do? And you can experiment. You can try out, and also what I do, okay, is I notice that there's a difference when I'm listening to the Murli or when I'm reading the Murli, because everybody has access to the Murli. So you can read the Murli and you can go through the Murli as often as you want to extract points. And you will find that, say, when you're listening to a Murli, a point will stand out. And then when you read it afterwards, a different point will stand out. And that's valid. And it's perfectly okay. And then it's like you give yourself full freedom to take up whichever point. But the thing is, when you have like this total open, full freedom, it's like too many choices. And so then a good idea is to take the one that strikes you first and work with that, because then you don't have to be troubled by all the many, many choices that you have. If there is a day where you just can't decide, then just keep looking at the Murli patiently until you see, yeah, this one intrigues me. Let me spend a little time on that. And if you finish that point quite quickly, there's nothing wrong with going to another point and looking at that one. You see, I think a lot of people feel that there is a right way and you want to know what that right way is, but it's not really like that. I think it's just really good to acknowledge to yourself that there's many, many ways. And there's lots of different ways to meditate, but, all of them are based in the knowledge. Now, this I think is very important. And it might not be that you meditate on something from that particular day's Murli. There may be some other thing that you meditate on. But of course, all of the knowledge originates in some Murli or another, because that's where all the knowledge is. Whatever Baba said, it was written down by Ishu Dadi, who was the secretary of Baba, and that's the Murlis that we get. She took notes. Baba was speaking. She took notes, and that's the Murlis that we get, you see. And she was very, very fast in writing because Baba was speaking quite quickly always. But she could write really quick. And so she got everything. And that's the legacy that we have, And it's a treasure of knowledge. So let me hear another one.
Okay, so the one that you were reading was self-conscious with concern. Others will know I'm not maybe properly remembering.
Oh, well, very important to not be concerned about what others think or don't think, because they don't know what's going on in your mind, even if they claim that they do. It's something you need to really be clear about. And so anyway, it's none of their business what you're thinking or how you're thinking. And so it's like really good to create these boundaries around yourself. This is me with God, and it's nobody else's business. Let's face it. You don't allow yourself to be invaded like that. And other people's opinion doesn't count. And so don't make it count, because it doesn't. Everybody will be very happy to comment on you as far as you let them. But if you're really clear about yourself, then you can say in your mind, you have no obligation to report to anyone. You say in your mind, if you think somebody might be wondering about what's going on in your mind. Create a mentality which is like a boundary, and do not be so open to invasion. I really think that's important.
Okay. I noticed that first Baba was talking about you have to come here to make your fortune of the kingdom. Then it goes from making your fortune, the fortune becomes elevated by doing two things: staying in remembrance and paying attention to the study. From this, Baba is raising the bar by now. He wants us to do three things, which he calls Srimat: become voiceless, maybe viceless, become soul conscious, and don't perform wrong actions. Okay. This last stage makes your fortune become elevated for 21 births.
Well, all of these three things are absolutely connected, aren't they? Being viceless means the same thing as do not perform wrong actions. And do not perform wrong actions is the same thing as perform right actions. And perform right actions is the same thing as be soul conscious. Because when you're soul conscious, the natural thing to do is to perform actions that correspond with the quality of the soul. But if you don't have power, and everybody doesn't have quite enough power, right? So we need to have remembrance. But the key thing is not to be under other people's influence. It was interesting, the earlier question that you mentioned is about other people, what other people think about whether I'm meditating properly or not. And you have to really make it clear to yourself that it's not their business. And do not be such that, you allow them to feel that they can invade your private space. Why would you do that? You don't have to. Nothing that says you have to do that. You're in school and the teacher is God and there are classmates around, but each classmate is studying for their own selves. It's not their business to see what you're doing or how you're doing. If you invite them or ask them, or you have somebody who you trust and whose opinion you value, that's another matter. But if somebody wants to impose their opinion on you, then it's up to you to put a boundary and say, not allowed. Stay on your side of the fence. You know what I mean? And that's important to know about that.
So it seems there was a progression this morning of making fortune. Then it gets elevated by doing a couple of things. Then the bar gets raised with history mat, which gives 21 births. I found it had levels to think about.
Yes, that's really good. Because when you have something to think about, that's called meditating. Meditating really means to think deeply about what is worth thinking about. It's a good definition of meditation from the angle of studying and thinking. And then another very important definition of yoga, which is there in the Murlis, and it's also in the Gita, very clearly stated that yoga means skill in action. That means when you're connected with Shiv Baba, you will intuitively feel what to do, because being connected with Shiv Baba, you're also studying. So you feel it, you know it, you get it, you do it. When you're disconnected, you come under the influence of other people, and then maybe you react to what they're doing, or you try to resist their influence on you, but you're affected, you see. But when you're just you and Baba, then you're much more free to do as you feel is the right thing to do. And that freedom is very important, so that you know the information, you're connected with Baba, you're in your stage of self-respect, and then you act, and it comes out well.
Okay, and I believe that is the end for the questions and comments.
Okay, brilliant. Well, we've also reached our 7 o'clock, which is the end time for our session. So if I may, let us just have a few moments together to just feel the beauty of our fortune, which is awake, the beauty of being lucky, of being chosen by God to be his students and to be in his family. And it's good, really good.